Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of News from the Real World podcast. I'm going to kick us off talking about finding your passion in life. So, this article was a student pick, and it's called 25 Questions That Will Guide You to Find and Follow Your Passion. It was on lifehack.org. So this article was essentially a long list of questions that it wanted you to ask yourself and write down the answers to about finding your passion in life and what you do if you don't know what your passion is. It was very soul-searching. If you read the article and actually started thinking about it, you kind of had to delve deep into your innermost, like...
Yeah, I didn't have time for that part. Ain't nobody got time for that.
I tried,
one of the things that the article made a point of, which I found really interesting, was that it said that you can outgrow your passion, which is part of what it was saying, like, you should ask yourself these questions if you don't know if you're still following your passion or it's just something that you thought you wanted to do 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. So do you guys think you can outgrow a passion?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally.
Okay.
I really do believe that. I think that just to me is human nature, that we really, certain things about us I think stay very much the same over our lives, but I think that a lot changes actually. And I think that one of those things is what we find really interesting at the moment. And I think that's kind of the definition of passion, whatever you're most interested in.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be the
You look skeptical.
all the time.
No, I think you can outgrow your passion. Just to play the devil's advocate, it begs the question, like, was it ever your passion? Like, do you know what I mean?
That's good. I mean, it's maybe part of the, shiny thing sort of pitfall where you're like, oh, that looks great, I want to do that. And then you just dive into it without really thinking about it. Mm-hmm. But
when I hear about people, changing tech or changing careers, I always feel like it's not because they've outgrown that passion. It's like the industry or the realities of that career that they're in, grind them down to the point where their passion is not enough. You know?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I think that's true as well.
And that's a good thing to think about, the practicalities of that, blockbuster movie making to the point where it gets so corporatized that you can't achieve your creative dreams anymore, and yet you still love filmmaking, but maybe you want to shift out of that if you feel like you can't find a way to live your passion in the reality that currently exists.
I know that really well. It's like I graduated from music school. Lots of my friends who are musicians, they really want to do it, but then after they graduated, they find that the passion is not enough. You cannot make your fortune out of this thing, so they change to doing something else. Open the shop, selling things, go to business school
instead. Passion is money.
But also, part of the article was also saying you have to ask yourself what would you do if you couldn't fail?
Yeah.
So if money was not a problem and nothing that could possibly go wrong was going to go wrong, what would you do? So I think the point of it was saying money shouldn't be an issue. But I don't know.
That's what my boss used to tell me all the time, and I do not buy
I'm
that.
kind of more cynical than that, and So I think it's a good article. Everyone should read it. It kind of makes you think a lot about yourself if you're in the mood to think about yourself. But
I think a little Socratic introspection is always good.
Always great. So Jordan, speaking of passions, tell us about submissions statements.
Yes, so this is from HowlRound by Carla Stillwell, and the title was "What is Your Mission?" And this was not a student pick, which I kind of want to admonish and chastise the students for not finding an article like this interesting, because I think that being a theater practitioner right now this is kind of a big aspect to it, and considering questions like this. So now that I've made it clear that why you should read it, I'll tell you what I'm talking about. So this article was about Carla Stillwell kind of assessing her own theater company and whether or not they were fulfilling the mission that they wrote, the mission statement for their company. Pretty much every not-for-profit and even some for-profit theaters have a mission statement of some kind because they have a goal, right? And so her theater company, their intention was to promote artists artwork, generally talking about plays and other theatrical works, that that in some way references the African diaspora. And so she realized we actually have some underrepresented groups that have not presented work with us or been involved in some way. And so that was, she's always kind of felt like she's on this platform or on a soapbox about how people need to do their mission, and then she really assessed whether or not they had, and she realized, oh my goodness, I'm missing something here, and so she's kind of rethinking the way that they're going to approach things. And so the article in general is kind of about diversity and other things in theater, and I think that's a big aspect. I think that's kind of the more important aspect of her article than necessarily the considering the mission statement part. But let me open it up to you guys. Did you find anything interesting in her her article?
Yeah, what I found interesting was that realization that within what might be seen as underrepresented groups, there's underrepresented groups within underrepresented
Absolutely.
groups. But what I thought was inspiring was how she was saying, well, now we're going to, if those voices aren't coming to us, like we have to go out and seek those voices, which I think is really important. And that message to do that, for theatre companies to do that, to actually go out and seek rather than and nurture rather than just kind of work with what's there.
Whatever's popping up to their attention. I completely agree with that.
I think going off of that, I think it's really important for theaters to be, instead of just being reactionary, that they're actually, I can't think of the word right now, but are
leading.
Yeah, are leading what they're doing rather than just being reactionary to what is happening, to what's happening in their community or to what's, that they have to take some initiative in going out and finding those people and not just waiting for the opportunity to come to them. Which I thought, everyone should kind of take note of in theater. So often it's just here's a show that you're doing, and you just kind of, okay, great, and you don't really think about, maybe I should go out and, do a show, find a show that needs me to do it, instead of being given a show.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I think it's kind of both ways. I think that, theater companies should seek out underrepresented artists and support them and nurture them. And I think that those artists really should, be as loud as they can. Somehow. I think you just have to ask for, for what you want in a lot of ways. That's just me projecting my own thoughts about my own artwork. Anyway, this isn't about me. Let's move on.
Yeah. Well, speaking of underrepresented groups that we don't really talk about a lot in theater. Eleanor, kick us off talking about South Africa.
Great. So this article was called South Africa's Theatre of Struggle Appoints First Black Artistic Director, and it's by David Smith for The Guardian, and this was another editor pick. And the article is talking about how the Market Theatre in Johannesburg in South Africa, which is one of the most prestigious theatres in South Africa and was a leading theatre voice during the apartheid time, premiering some of the works of Athol Fugard and some of those other playwrights that were talking and fighting the apartheid system. And they've just appointed a new artistic director who is the first black person to be running this theatre, which is kind of interesting. And his name's James Nkobo. And yeah, he was talking about kind of a similar thing, wanting to build a broader audience for the theatre, wanting to build in communities from the Indian and coloured communities in South Africa, as well as was really also talking about, what is the role of a theatre like that in a post-apartheid environment. And he was really pushing, we need to keep talking about that issue and keep remembering the history of our country through the theatre.
But I think another point that he said, though, was that it can't just be about that.
No.
Because he was saying that there was a comment in it, a quote in there about how usually in South African theaters, plays about apartheid or about that reference apartheid usually do very well and get a lot of people to come see them, but the kind of what we would consider classic plays don't, because it doesn't seem like there's an audience for that there. And he was saying no, there is an audience. All these plays like Shakespeare or August Wilson are kind of relevant to all audiences, regardless of what their history was or what
Yeah.
So I thought that was another interesting point that he made.
Yeah, and he was his program looked like pretty diverse. Like he was going to have a
Yeah.
Stephen Burkoff and the like
hip
David
hop
Mamet
artists
and
come in,
hip-hop,
and yeah.
So I
So-
thought that was really cool.
Well, thanks everyone for watching episode 2. We will see you soon for episode 3.
I'm really excited about this tattoo.
All right.
Our copyright artist.
Face
Copyright
tattoos.
artist.
It's all about face tattoos.
It's not about face tattoos.
If anyone thinks it's about copyright, they're wrong.